Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight is September 14th. Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and we've had quite a week. They threw storms at us, they've thrown all kinds of financial nonsense at us and all kinds of threats at us, and we're all still here, and we'll be here next week as well, because it failed. I know a lot of you like hearing that, because they keep failing. They've repeatedly failed at everything they've done. And quite frankly, the powers that be are a blight on humanity, and this show will detail that. We'll also I decided to do a piece on what was a short piece that I've lengthened to get people to understand where they're at, and a poignant reminder of how you can never forget. So look forward to that, and some intel in the second hour. But let's get through the details of the show first, and then we'll get into the usual news. Where are we? Right. We have an email for the show, truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com, and the link for the show is www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. We have an articles website that also contains all the shows, including a section for the special shows. I know I've been receiving emails for people asking me about the Faction show, and people asking me about the Levishoff show and the Svarley show and different ones. They're all in a special section on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org, and there's some articles on there as well. We have the Facebook page, which is Truth, Honour and Integrity, if you wish to join that. If you don't wish to join Facebook, we have a social media alternative that doesn't have the privacy right issues and the spying and the AI of Facebook, and that's on MeWe. If you send an email to the Truth, Honour and Integrity at Gmail, then we can add you, because people are having difficulty locating it. We have the People's Club donations website link. Go and check that out. That's for the future, hopefully sooner rather than later. It's kind of dragged on a bit, but that's called thepeoplesclub.org. And I want to thank one particular person who donated a fairly large amount this week. Thank you. Right, where are we? We're going to be covering the storm and all the fun and games, all in one swoop. But it clearly wasn't anything like they were making out. Yes, there's some damage. Yes, some people got killed, although nothing, in my opinion, to do with the storm, more to do with their own stupidity, driving around in it. You know, if you're the emergency services, that's part of their job, but people driving around in, you know, high-end tropical storm and low-end hurricane winds is not recommended, never mind with the flooding. So it was not as anywhere near as catastrophic as they made out, and I was asked to go on OYM, the Irish lads, Alan and Steve, on Sunday and give an update, and I was only on for 20 or 25 minutes. Well, I basically said it wouldn't be anywhere near as bad, and that's how it turned out. It was no Hurricane Charlie, I was here for that in 2004, where this particular region lost tens of thousands of trees, and I mean tens of thousands. Probably 50% lost roofs. A whole heap of pool cages collapsed into the pool, and it took near 2 years to fix it all up. This is nowhere near it. Most people, the damage is a few shingles and a few pool screens out, so it worked. Right, let's get into some news. There's a lot of news going on, and some of it not so good. I think most of you will agree with that this week. But let's cover it, and let's get some opinion on it, and let's see where we go with it. So we had another musical chairs of the powers that be in the government. This time the Federal Reserve Vice Chairman Stanley Fischer, his German name, you'll hear that a lot in this particular show, which will become apparent, has announced his decision to step down, effective October the 13th, which is a Friday, go figure, citing personal reasons in a letter of resignation to Donald Trump. His term as Vice Chairman was set to expire on June the 12th, 2018, but he's jumping ship now because it's sinking. Mr. Fisher's resignation increases the vacancies on the Federal Reserve Board from 3 to 4, with Janet Yellen, Spit, and Brainard and Powell remaining the only members on the board. There won't be many left. This could accelerate Senate confirmation of Randall Quarles to be Vice Chair for Supervision, which will be considered in a Senate Banking Committee and looks likely to be approved before the full Senate prior to Fisher's planned departure. Mr. Fisher praises America's economic growth during his tenure. Yeah, pull the other one, mate. Economic growth, my ass. We've been in a recession for near 10 years. Dear me. And says that, informed by the lessons of the recent financial crisis, which hasn't ended, we have built upon earlier steps to make the financial system stronger and more resilient and better able to provide the credit so vital to the prosperity of the US. Credit, as in debt. In one of his last public appearances, Mr. Fisher warned about complacency over market risk and said that the price of risky assets, they should know, has increased in most major asset markets in recent months, including equities, which now stands in the top quintile of historical distributions. It may not be for so much longer. More financial news and more evidence of hacking in a desperate attempt to collect more funds from people. The credit reporting giant Equifax was hit with a class action lawsuit within hours of disclosing a cyber attack had potentially compromised personal information for 143 million American customers. It was filed in Oregon federal court late last Thursday, and the civil action accuses the Georgia-based company of failing to maintain adequate electronic security safeguards as part of a corporate effort to save money. Go figure. The lawsuit on behalf of the plaintiffs Mary McHill and Brooke Reinhardt seeks an order requiring Equifax to preserve all records related to the breach and formally designating the case as a class action for all consumers affected by the cyber attack. I would be surprised if those papers still exist, because certain ones that do that stuff like to cover their tracks. But maybe there's a higher force that can watch at all times. The court complaint also seeks fair compensation and costs to be decided by a federal jury. In an attempt to increase profits, Equifax negligently failed to maintain adequate technological safeguards to protect Ms. McHill and Mr. Reinhardt's information from unauthorized access by hackers. The Oregon attorney Michael Fuller stated that this is completely unacceptable, and we're going to go forward with this case, which has not been allocated yet, as I understand. We'll see. Now, like 9/11, which the anniversary has just passed, and it appears Drake's thrown his lightning bolts. We have a storm here. The Equifax CEOs appeared to know ahead of time, as they were using the hack to sell their stock and made millions in the process. Oops. And in my opinion, this is another example of the faction's desperation, snatching funds. You know, people say, well, you know, it's only the details. No, it's not just the details. How can they raid your account? Well, if you've got, for argument's sake, a credit limit of $30,000 and you're only using $3,000, those that have hacked can then collect that $27,000. That's how it works. And you'll also know who's got funds and who hasn't, so they can raid their particular accounts. It's dangerous stuff. And who's to say they won't demand a ransom for the safe return of the data? These people are that desperate, they'll go to any lengths to stay in the game. And I'll repeat an earlier message and warning. If you have banking on your phone, you are asking for trouble. This is what happens. You know, I know it's convenient, but I mentioned about convenience in a recent show a couple of months ago, and how that convenience is damaging to us. Convenience comes at a cost. I hope you don't fall for it. So remove banking from your phones, please. Better safe than sorry. Mr. Trump. I'm not too pleased with this, and certain people behind the scenes are not too pleased with this either. Seems like new boss, same as the old boss, but we'll see. And he has announced this week the extension of the trade embargo against Cuba for another year, after rolling back much of the previous administration's policies that reopened American investment and travel policy. Frog in the throat. The White House issued the presidential memorandum last Friday extending the ban under the Trading with the Enemy Act, indeed, on Cuba until September the 14th, 2018. That's not all about Mr. Castro, is it? Because he's no longer with us, unless they're going to announce in another couple of years that Mr. Castro died again. Amazing how many times that happens. And here's the forecasted, another one of the forecasted things mentioned on this show. The US national debt, as it's called, which is actually the cabal debt. It's nothing to do with us, but they have rolled it onto the people. 15 trillion of the 20 trillion debt currently resides with the people. Anyway, they have kicked the can down the road to stay in the game again, and hopefully the Chinese elders perform minor miracles and money magic and pull off the RV and bail them out of the credit that this country is currently sieving. So the debt reached 20 trillion as Mr. Trump signed a bipartisan bill temporarily raising the nation's debt limit for 3 months. So with the stroke of his presidential pen, increased the statutory debt last Friday by approximately 318 billion, according to the Treasury Department. Bear in mind, they were asking for the Pentagon were asking for 60 billion. So why has it suddenly gone from 60 to 318 billion? Begs the question. And before the bill's completion, the US debt was sitting around $19.84 trillion, and the legislation allowed the Treasury Department to start borrowing again immediately after several months of using extraordinary measures to avoid a financial default. Nice wording, extraordinary measures to avoid a financial default. Again, this is to confirm what we've been saying in the show, is they've been raiding all the accounts, all the banks, all the pension, everything, just to keep going. And this has been going on since November last year. All $15 billion. 15 billion is for emergency funding for Hurricane Harvey recovery efforts, which was attached to the borrowing measure. But the question remains again, what is the other 303 billion for? As I can guarantee you, it's not for the benefit of the American people, is it? And Mr. Trump has missed a key opportunity in this person's opinion. So that'll take them apparently until the first couple of weeks in December to spend, and then we'll see what happens for Christmas, because it'll happen again. China, the world's biggest car market, surprised me. I thought it was Japan. Plans to ban the production of and sale of diesel and petrol or gas cars and vans, but we have to wait another 23 years for it. Anyway, it's a move in the right direction. The country's Vice Minister of Industry said it had started relevant research, but it had not yet decided when the ban would come into force. Those measures will certainly bring profound changes for our car industry's development. And China made 28 million cars last year, almost a third of the global total. Both the UK and France have already announced plans to ban new diesel and petrol vehicles by 2040 as part of efforts to reduce pollution and carbon emissions. Chinese owned car maker Volvo, really sounds Chinese, that, doesn't it? Said in July that its all new car models would have an electric motor from 2019 onwards, and they plan on selling 1 million electric cars per year by 2025. End of oil. Where are we? A somber. Well, it was close. News item, but again, something we've covered on this show. We had Kevin Annett exposing some of the crimes going on in Canada. I've mentioned previously about what happened in Scotland with the Dunblane school, when it was alleged to be a lone crackpot gunman who was actually a Manchurian candidate for certain government elements. All those children in Dunblane were starting to talk about the sexual abuse done by in the main, Scottish politicians. The whole school. And this week, the bodies of hundreds of children are believed to have been buried in a mass grave in Lanarkshire, southern Scotland. The children were all residents of a care home run by Catholic nuns. My contempt for those people grows by the day. At least 400 children are thought to be buried in a section of St Mary's Cemetery in Lanark. The Daughters of Charity of St Vincent de Paul, which ran the home, refused to comment on the findings. Go figure. But the research by the File on 4 programme, in conjunction with the Sunday Post newspaper, which is a Scottish paper, focused on Smileham Park Orphanage in Lanarkshire, which opened in 1864 and provided care for orphans or children from broken homes. It closed in 1981, having looked after 11,600 children, and the burial plot containing the bodies of around 400 children was uncovered by two former residents of Smileham in 2003. Funny how they've kept it quiet for so long, isn't it? And Frank Doherty and Jim Kane discovered an overgrown, unmarked section of St Mary's Cemetery during their efforts to reveal physical abuse, which they said many former residents had suffered. You'll find that this is not a lone story. Wherever there's Catholic nun care homes, this happened in most of them. We had one in Liverpool. Thousands of kids when the war was on. They were supposed to be looking after them or evacuating them. And what they did is they sold them to Australia, put the kids on the boat, Liverpool being a major port, and transported thousands of children without the parents to Australia, 11,000 miles away. Many of them were never seen again. This was exposed in a documentary in the 90s in the UK. It's you're going to hear a lot more when the full truth comes out of Catholic churches and children. It's not going to be pleasant. Alright, as we have a storm overhead, we're going to go into storm news. That's been taking place this week, and we're going to bring up a number of key points. But this one kind of disturbed me more than anything. You know, on September the 8th, which was Friday, a mandatory evacuation order was issued for MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, in response to the imminent impact of Hurricane Irma, which is now projected at the time to make landfall in South Florida on Sunday morning, which it did. As most MacDill military and civilian personnel begin the evacuation, sightings of flying triangles allegedly from MacDill continue to be sighted and photographed, this time with a military helicopter nearby. Interesting side note. So they evacuated 5,000 troops. Wouldn't those troops have been useful to be relocated in Florida to help the people instead of moving them out altogether? particularly when they were talking about bringing 8,000 other troops in. But why would you want to bring 8,000 other troops in from another region when you've got 5,000 there that are being evacuated? It doesn't really make much sense. It makes even less sense when you read the evacuation order itself, which went into effect at 12 noon, Friday, September the 8th, and will remain in effect, the evacuation, until March the 6th, 2018. Long storm that, isn't it? So, a Category 1 storm comes over and they evacuate 5,000 troops, which vanished by Monday morning, and they're evacuated until March the 6th next year. Really? That was signed by the commander, or commandant, probably the better term given his name, Colonel April D. Vogel. Something's going on with the military. We'll find out more about that later. And here is more evidence of utter madness and bullshittery beyond all reason. A man who claims he was denied entry into a hurricane shelter unless he underwent a background check is suing Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, who got national attention after saying on Twitter he would jail anyone with an outstanding warrant who tried to seek shelter from Hurricane Irma. Really? Judd called the lawsuit against him frivolous and said he would not change his policy. The sheriff said his stance was to prevent registered sex offenders, allegedly, from entering shelters. But the suit filed by immigrant rights group Nexus Services states Florida's driver's licenses already clearly mark someone as a sex offender. Yet again, they'll tell you one thing and lie to your face with another. But they claim the policy, those that filed the lawsuit claim the policy was discriminatory and violates Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful search and seizure. And the suit, which attorney Cynthia Conlon said was electronically filed on Sunday, but hadn't been processed by the 10th Judicial Circuit Court, claims Andres Moreno of Virginia was told by Polk County deputies that he would have to submit a criminal background check before he was able to enter the shelter on Saturday. Really? You know, how far are we just going to tolerate this nattiness? It's right in your face. A background check on people fleeing according to the media anyway, a catastrophic storm where we're all going to die. And they want to do background checks, checking if people's got parking tickets. These people have lost the plot altogether. If it's his decision, Sheriff Grady Judd, then he should be fired. If it's come from higher up, which at this point I suspect it is, then it's time these people are outed once and for all. And if it's Judd, then the people of Polk County really need to force that guy out, both of his position and his home, and tell him you're not wanted in this region. Name and shame. More fun and games. Miami-Dade School Chief Alberto Carvalho said the county's chaotic opening of dozens of shelters ahead of Hurricane Irma stemmed in part because the Red Cross didn't show up. Go figure. They didn't show up in Harvey, but they did eventually. We'll have more on that soon. To manage operations, schools served as most of the 42 shelters in Miami-Dade County government, which opened ahead of Irma arriving, the largest ever operated as a response to an unprecedented evacuation order affecting more than 600,000 residents. The American Red Cross has an agreement to operate the shelters. Only the Red Cross can operate them. Why is that? But their lack of staffing slowed openings in Miami-Dade, and in some schools left principals scrambling to manage logistics tied to a sudden influx of more than 1,000 people looking for refuge and food. In some instances, the Red Cross showed up very late. In some instances, the Red Cross never showed up at all. You know, and people are given these thieves, bandits, really, pirates, bandits, the whole lot, money, donations. It makes me sick. So they had to make an executive decision that we would open the shelters on our own, led by our principals and our custodians and our cafeteria workers. A Red Cross spokesman, Robert Baltadano, referred questions to the charity's regional communications director, Grace Meinhofer. Ooh, another German-sounding name. Unbelievable. And Miss Meinführer, Grace Meinhofer, did not immediately respond to an email. Go figure. Just collect your money and hide and run away with it. More fun and games. State of Florida has made headlines recently about how they were treating people in the hurricane shelters last week. As the Free Thought Project reported, Florida police announced that they would arrest people for outstanding parking ticket violations if they tried to seek refuge in one of their shelters, different region. The previous one was Tampa. This is in Volusia, which is Daytona, pretty much. However, that was just the beginning. A video which was taken in Volusia County, Florida, shows it wasn't just people with warrants the government was treating as second-class citizens. It was the homeless too. And in the particular video, several homeless people who were simply trying to seek refuge in a local shelter during the storm, after being told to go there by the police, were seen being turned away by the police for no other reason other than the fact that they had no house to live in. So they couldn't give a home address, so they weren't allowed in. Have you ever heard anything so insane in all your life? Again, Volusia County Police Chief needs naming and shaming and turfed out of the community. The police are supposed to, in inverted commas, represent the people. Supposed to be looking after and preventing crime, responding to people's needs. And yet all they seem to be interested in is outstanding parking tickets, which gets you barred from going in a shelter, and so they're throwing people out into a Category 1 storm. What type of synthetics are we dealing with here? I warned back in 2014 the police were infiltrated with clones, because these people, Mr. Judd and Volusia County Police Force, have zero compassion. So when the men and women were asked their address when checking into the shelter and had no address to give because they're already homeless, they were told they were not allowed at the shelter because they were homeless. Really? That type of human with clone stupidity leaves me biting my tongue. Houston City Councilman Dave Martin shared his thoughts on the Red Cross during a council meeting last Wednesday, and he commented on the Red Cross, calling it the Red Lost, and asked people to not waste their money and send it to other causes. Here, Mr. Martin, says all. Mr. Martin has been in Kingswood fighting this thing, and we have not seen one person, not a single person from the Red Cross, yet every time I turn on the television they are receiving multi hundreds of millions of dollars. He also shared the following after his comments during the meeting, which gained media attention. Many of you have asked about my comments regarding the Red Cross during our City Council meeting on Wednesday. I stand by my comments. Well done. However, they were directed at the management, paid executive staff at the Red Cross, and not the thousands of volunteers who are doing a tremendous job. Now, Mr. Martin then attached a picture taken at 10:30 p.m. on a Thursday night, and it's Houston's finest 5-star hotel called the Regis. Guess who was staying at it? You got it, the Red Cross. That's what they do with your money. They live the high life off it, with $500,000 payouts to CEOs, and they spend their time in the Ritz and the Hiltons and leave people to starve and dehydrate. At which point do we completely shut that company down once and for all? Take back all the funds in their account and tell them where to go. So the Red Cross was staying at the 5-star hotel while all the people were being shipped out into shelters that were not staffed by the Red Cross, even though they have full control over them. And so hundreds of people, millions of people were pouring into the Red Cross while they are living like kings, and the people are looking after each other, bringing boats from many miles away to pull people out of the waters. But Red Cross sit there in a 5-star hotel. Here's another thing about Houston. I think there's something in the water in Texas. The Houston mayor, Sylvester Turner, is calling for a year-long raise in property taxes to pay for the damages following Hurricane Harvey. Really? What about the people who haven't got a home? How are they going to be paying their property taxes? Message to Mr. Turner, because history has a habit of forgetting. We're asking for a year-long raise in property taxes. The Fed said that about income tax back in 1934. We're still paying it. So between him and that stupid jizz woman in Texas, I'm beginning to wonder what they smoke over there. Asking for an increase in property taxes to pay for it. Mr. Turner perhaps needs reminding we have something called home insurance. Exorbitant rates, all kinds of get out clauses for the insurance company, and then when we require it, having paid it for many years, they ask for handouts. Florida's been collecting for a hurricane for the last 12 years. It's on virtually every bill you get, a little tax added on. So they've collected billions. Now the government has promised to put 15 billion in funds to pay for that as well. So between them and the insurance companies, Houston should be fine. Or here's another idea. Go and raid the Red Cross fund account and get them to hand over the public's money that they have given them for the people in Houston. Not ask for the people to pay for it again. We've already paid for it. So there's three avenues: insurance, the 15 billion from the government, and the Red Cross funds. Use those funds, already paid forward, remember, to fix the damages. Or perhaps you can go down the road and raid the Bush Ranch and acquire some funds off them parasites. So there's 4 solutions, Mr. Turner, without raiding the people's accounts again. It's unbelievable. These people have completely lost the plot. Where are we? Where are we for time? As has been mentioned on this show, when relating to Brexit, which is the allegedly was Britain's exit from the EU. In real terms, it was Baron Rothschild's exit from Britain. But it now appears, as I've stated all along, they're backtracking. Go figure. And the UK government is giving themselves powers to override the Parliament on Brexit, and they will reverse it. Good luck with that. Further examples of people in powerful positions fiddling with children came out this week, and the Seattle Mayor Ed Murray, who has said he will resign the mayor's office as of Tuesday afternoon after news broke that a 5th person had accused the mayor of molesting him as a child. Amazing how they all get in positions of power. That's not, it just is what it is. So Mr. Murray resigned effective at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. The City Council President Bruce Harrell is expected to serve as mayor until the November election. And for months, Mr. Murray has faced allegations that he sexually abused homeless boys he encountered decades ago. Really. Even Murray's cousin, Joseph Dyer, levied similar allegations, saying he felt moved to act because of Murray's treatment of his accusers. And the cousin said he was 13 years old when Murray sexually assaulted him for a year while they shared a bedroom in Dyer's mother's home on Long Island, New York in 1970. What I haven't heard is, why hasn't he been arrested? Think if you or I had molested children and we just resigned from our job, we'd walk away. Why hasn't he been arrested? This is an add-on piece to do with the phones. Security researchers have discovered 8 vulnerabilities codenamed collectively as Blueborn, with an E on the end, in the Bluetooth implementations used by over 5.3 billion devices. Oops. There's that program again. Blueborn, Bluetooth, Bluebeam, Bluebook. Watch it. Another example of why you shouldn't have personal data on your phone, or limit it anyway. So the researchers say the vulnerabilities are undetectable and unstoppable by traditional security solutions. That means it's one of the agencies. I'll say it right outright. No user interaction is needed for an attacker to use the Blueborn flaws, nor does the attacker need to pair with the target device. Oops. And people are queuing up for $1,000 iPhones. Madness. Well, in other news, the White House was on lockdown this Tuesday due to a suspicious package found. What was found was a book on common sense. It appears no one in the building could comprehend it. It may also be related to this final news piece. I warned on Sunday of movement around the country, and certain fun and games is ongoing. 8 US Special Operations soldiers were injured today during an alleged training exercise involving demolitions at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. The soldiers were taken to several hospitals, including the Womack Army Medical Center, on base for treatment. A spokesman for the US Army Special Operations Command, which is based at Fort Bragg, Mr. Rob Bockholt. Now, the incident at Fort Bragg, which happened today, comes just one day after an alleged vehicle fire at Camp Pendleton in California, which left 15 Marines injured, 8 of them in the burns unit, following a training accident, allegedly. 5 still remain in critical condition, and this follows on an incident on Tuesday where a soldier was killed during a hoist training for medical helicopter evacuations at Fort Hood. Interesting times. So far this year, more American troops have been killed in training than in combat. Some of the older people in Europe will say no surprise there. Right. The news went on a lot longer. There's a lot to cover. A lot of crass stupidity. A lot of complete insanity. A lot of uncaring, cold-hearted, zero compassion people. A lot of perverts. It's a mad world. It sure is. Right, we'll have a couple of songs and we'll be back with some intel. Let's try with this one. Hi all and welcome back to the second hour. We've got a lakefront property at the moment. That storm some of you could hear in the background has just dumped about 8 inches of rain, and the pool is is rising. So, right, let's get on with some bits of intel and some op-ed pieces, and we'll see how that goes. Where are we? Let's cut that out and move that to there. Right, okay. So, as forecasted, as I said in a piece earlier, they increased the debt ceiling again this week. That's not a good move for we the people. It just delays things another 3 months. Work is still ongoing. Much progress is being made. Some heavy progress is being made. Details which are not available at the moment for safety purposes, as you'll understand. But basically they kick the can down the road again. But that can will hit a brick wall eventually. And at that point, the cabal are completely doomed. So they've made a deal about increasing the debt ceiling and alleged wrapping it up as funding for hurricanes to FEMA, who many will think is a federal department. And they'd be surprised to find out they're not. Oops. FEMA is an American NGO, non-governmental organisation. It's not federal. We'll have more on what goes on with that shortly. No, we'll cover it now. So with regards to the Red Cross and the fun and games with them and certain shelters, the NGO and the government have contracts with hotels. This will anger some people. And the government pay an annual fee, and if there is a need, the hotel rate for the people staying there is $0 or less than $20. While we pay 100 not per night. And they have first right to any room in the Marriott chains, Ritz, Holiday Inn. And you'll not be surprised to hear that the same goes with airlines. The US government pays American Airlines $500 million per year so that government employees and soldiers can fly free on standby. course, we heard or saw price gouging going through the roof, people wanting to flee Hurricane Irma, wanting to get out of Florida. And Delta, there's a boycott, if ever there was one, decided they would charge $10,350 for 3 flights from Miami to New York. Some of these flights are $99, $120. Use them. That's the way to fight back. Same as the gas stations. There's no real reason for gas or petrol to go up. None whatsoever. We have a massive surplus, the biggest in history. There's no one's buying it. So even if you just started using the surplus, the prices wouldn't go up for at least 3 months. By that time, everything's fixed, and back, apart from Houston. In Florida, in 3 months, everything's fixed, because the damage is a lot more minimal. So, Delta should go on a boycott list. Those flights should have been free for residents to get out. As mentioned previous, it is sponsored by the government in a disaster area. This is what the funds are supposed to be for. Now, Delta collect both ways. So, it's in the contract for these people, the airlines and the hotels, to supply rooms and flights in event of an emergency stroke disaster. It's already paid for by our tax money, I might add. You say the government, but it's actually our tax money they have. So they have a contract. Main contract is American Airlines and United, go figure. Like I said, the 9/11's just passed, hasn't it? So the airlines, by doing that, have basically scammed the government, because they've already paid it forward. They've collected the government money and collected money off the people at an exorbitant rate. And it's time the US government stepped in and demanded a refund to all those who had to pay through the nose on those flights, because they were already paid for. Unbelievable, the greed, levels of greed and skullduggery people will go to. It defies belief, it really does. Where are we? Well, despite their drive to collect donations via Hurricane Harvey, it appears they didn't get as much as they thought they would, and yet it still didn't stop them playing games with that money. Like I kept telling you, it's not going to the people. It didn't in Katrina. It won't in Houston either, until the people start demanding it. So what the ones who collected the donations, which went into the cabal named banks, it always is with charities, they tried to transfer it to the Hong Kong exchange. on Tuesday night. And lo and behold, it disappeared. Oops. So that plan failed also. That money will be returned. Hope you like that one. Mr. McCain, again, another person. Why is he walking amongst us? Mr. McCain goes on Middle East jaunts at our expense, and suddenly war breaks out. So he was flapping his gums the other day during the ERMA updates on how we need to increase defence spending. Really? Whilst the people are worried about their lives and their homes, he's more worried about going to war. Started babbling on about North Korea. So the only problem is the banks have no liquidity in any currency. None. Now do you understand when I say how much trouble they're in? This is why they've been using these weather wars to collect massive amounts of donations off the public to keep them funded. And that didn't work. And the UN clowns, which is the next part, our people got a call from the UN this week. Well, commonly known as Rothschild's bitches. They who have no sovereignty. So quite why they called is beyond me. And lo and behold, they were asking for 318 billion. Why? Because the Federal Reserve can't pay the American government through December the 8th as promised. Oops. So the Federal Reserve is now broke as well. See where this is going? So we spoke to him and said we will help the American government direct, as in the real American government, not the corporation. But we're not putting any money through the UN, because the UN has nothing to do with America or its people, despite what they think. Rothschild's puppets. Next piece of news. I can now report that the fun and games behind the scenes has reached epic proportions, which may play into the earlier news item to do with the military. And there's a lot of dissent in the ranks. Big time. People are not happy. They know now they've been lied to. They've been shown the evidence over and over again. And one of their schemes failed this week also. In the last week there was fun and games going on with the Bitcoin, and Hong Kong or Korea came up with the Hicoin, Hicoin, which they are trying to release on the back of the Bitcoin, except the Bitcoin is all about to crash around their ears. So for those who don't know what Bitcoin, this was the example I was given. It all started with the idea, like Facebook coins, to play games, and birthed into being able to buy real goods with fresh air money. But what it did do is, in reality, it tested the fiat system. And it also proved that the fiat money was complete bullshit. And this is why lots of currency countries are not trading in the US dollar anymore. Or should I say the Federal Reserve note. It's monopoly money. So you trade your monopoly money, which is now real, for fresh air currency. And people fall for that. You know, maybe we should create THI dollars. Because if someone takes it as valid, it becomes a real currency. And you might think that's rather amusing. Actually, it's not, it's true. But in the case of the Bitcoin, the Rothschilds were trying to make it the next Federal Reserve note. Oops. See why they want a cashless society now? Keep hold of it. While you have cash, you have a lifeline. So they wanted to use the Bitcoin for the Federal Reserve note, as the famed Treasury Reserve note didn't happen, failed. So they tried the Bitcoin for a while, except no one would accept it as the world reserve currency, because everyone is now aware of the stupidity and the fun and games and are not prepared to tolerate it anymore. All countries, pretty much. The storm. I'll give you an update on that from Sunday. The storm was interfered with on both sides. And the extraordinary thing is, the old methods of interacting with storms no longer works. Things have changed. And it required new thinking to dampen that particular storm down from a category 4 down to a category 1. Even on the Sunday, the Weather Channel spit. We're astounded at how it stalled over Cuba, a largely uninhabited region of Cuba, I might add. And there was a reason there was three storms in a row. Apart from it looks like 666, is the storm Katia and Jose were the steering mechanism for Irma. Once that was worked out, that storm no longer became catastrophic anymore. Well, for those who interfere with storms, you have to think in a different way. Something radical has changed here, and the old methods no longer work. And if you read between the lines, you'll work that one out. So, of course, we had the Weather Channel. You know, there's another group of people that should be boycotted. catastrophe, destructive, death, we're all going to die, etc, 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 we're all going to be under 10 foot of water. Part of the problem is, most people who don't live in Florida and the people in Europe don't realise that Florida is a sandbank, a giant sandbank. Most of the expensive properties that run down both the east and the west coast are no more than 10 foot above sea level. Some of them, likes of the Keys, is 3 foot above sea level. So a wave comes in, it comes over onto the road. Of course, that's what they want to show you. Everywhere's flooding. Well, if you're going to build properties 3 foot above sea level, yes, it will flood every time. Even a minor storm comes in, never mind a hurricane. And we have to start thinking different. Why have we built the most expensive properties on barrier islands? Not just in Florida, it's right up the east coast. And then they start showing homes tipped over, except they're not real homes, are they? And I don't mean to demean people who live in mobile homes. Some people like it. Some people have no option because they can't afford a proper home. Again, a situation created by them. But like I said, they're called mobile homes for a reason, because if the wind gets up, they go mobile. And so you'll see all the mobile homes tipped over in the wind. Well, if it's 60, 70 mile an hour winds, they're going to tip over. The question remains is why in this, what's supposed to be the richest country in the world, we have so many people being forced to live in cheap housing and basically caravans. This is wrong. And more so in a hurricane zone. Anyone with an ounce of common sense on the council would say no mobile homes or manufactured homes within 2 miles of the ocean, because that's protecting the people. And further inland you go, the safer it gets. But these people don't care. They don't think of that. They don't think that people would like to live in a proper home and are forced through circumstances, in many cases, to live in a mobile home. It's just wrong. So these are the type of things that will be shown on the media. Floods on a sandbank. Why have we built on a sandbank? Question remains. And mobile homes and manufactured homes tipped over. Again, why is there so many Americans living in mobile homes when there's around 20 odd million homes empty? Why is there so many homeless on the streets when there's 20 odd million homes empty? It all comes down to the haves and the have-nots yet again. And that's bad enough, but what's worse is when people start taking the piss out of the have-nots, like the clown in Volusia telling a homeless person he can't have a shelter. Throw those people out of the community altogether. In fact, throw them off the planet. We don't want those type of people anymore. So as the eye came through, the winds were showing a maximum of 59, which is not hurricane level. It's just not. 73 and up is hurricane. We get worse on a summer storm afternoon. We've just had one now. So 59 around the wall, with the occasional gust higher, it's not even a category 1, but it's Cat 5, Cat 4, and then he downs it to 3, and then in the end he had to admit and said they were surprised at how it dissipated. I'm not. A lot of people have heard me mention my disdain for cats. You know, they even name storms after them. Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5. These cats. So the Weather Channel is more interference and more government agents designed to promote fear. That's all. Next time, find a local station and turn the main media and their Weather Channel and their IBM channel people, which is what the Weather Channel is owned by, IBM, you know, green screen and all that stuff. But even when it made landfall, there was still interference because they were injecting it and the winds whipped up a bit higher, which we felt here. You can see this on the local radar. It's like a fan shape. And further examples of poor behaviour: the price of water, plywood, gas went through the roof in Florida. Yes, again, it's another condemnation of a poor behaviour of certain people. And like I said before, the simplest way to stop all this is to outright boycott people like Delta Airlines, Red Cross, the Weather Channel, the cops in Volusia County, the cops in Polk County, and just shut them down. But there was also examples of general people's poor behaviour, looting. Most of the videos involved people of one particular colour. Why is that always the case? It's not a racist statement, it's actually fact, in case people are mistaking it. You know, if those people were going into the supermarket and taking water or food, cans, to keep them going until everything is put back, I'm fine with that. Even the shop people would be fine with that, because largely it all gets trashed because it's been water damaged. They throw it out. So if people are taking food, I'm fine with it. What I'm not fine with is people raiding designer clothes and looting 55-inch TVs, which won't even work during the storm. That type of behaviour is sickening to me. And it's time the people who are doing that, the people of their community, address their behaviour. Yes, you can blame others, it's this and this and this. You have to, each racial group has to deal with their own mess. And I've covered this in many shows. You can't carry on behaving badly and expecting other people to see you in good light. You just can't. Now this next portion, a lot of people will be unfamiliar with this. They're more familiar with the Bilderbergers. And that's gained quite a reputation as one of the world's most secretive group of billionaires and political leaders. Who conspire against we the people and impact global events. But there's another group behind the Bilderbergers. You'll be surprised to know, or not. And the Bilderberger group are like puppets to this hidden group that includes a host of war criminals who are responsible for the war on terror. That's spelt T-E-R-R-A. Yet again, that's a play on words. And this group is called the Circle. L-E-C-E-R-C-L-E. Most will be unfamiliar with it. But we're going to out them, as these people need to be brought forward. And it come as no surprise, and in this particular report I was sent September the 13th 1982, that far back, the German publication Der Spiegel described it as a legal cartel made up of loyal Bundesnachrichtendienst agents. I did practice that. Foreign intelligence agents, reactionary politicians and alt-right journalists who played a crucial role in the 1980 elections. The Federal Intelligence Service, as it's called, and the CIA code name is CASCOPE. C-A-S-C-O-P-E. Now, wrapped in all this is we have certain people in our government who propose acts on behalf of these people. Some of you will remember the FISA Improvement Acts, F-I-S-A Improvement Acts, proposed by Senator Dianne Feinstein. Nice German sounding name. Bundesnachrichtendienst agent, who's the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and prompted by the disclosure of NSA surveillance by Edward Snowden. And that proposal would establish the surveillance program as being legal and impose only small limitations on availability of the data. In other words, they can just do what they like. Now, the places of operation for these Circle, Le Circle, for surveillance and data collection is GCHQ, which is in the UK, Fort Meade, it's an American base, Menwith Hill, which is another American base based in Britain, Pine Gap, Australia, the Southern Cross Cable, which is based in New Zealand. The Utah data center, which I might add cost the American taxpayer $1.5 billion to build in 2014. You know, when we were in that recession. Except it didn't end there. They then went and spent another $2 billion for the hardware for the Utah data center. The other place is the Bad Aibling Station, which had an official designation as the 18th United States Army Security Agency Field Station, or the pseudonym Hortensi III, and this is a satellite tracking station operated by the German intelligence agency Bundesnachrichtendienst, or BND as we'll call it in future, in Bad Aibling, Bavaria. We all know where that particular region started, don't we? Adam Weishaupt and all that stuff. And it was created by the Western Allies in 1947 and was run by the US National Security Agency until the early 2000s. No surprise, because the Nazi then got into the American government. Illegally, I might add, 2000 election, when operations were gradually transferred back to the BND due to public outrage over US surveillance operations in Germany. As part of the global surveillance network Echelon, you people have heard of that, Bad Aibling is the largest listening post outside of Britain and the United States of America. Another complex is the Dagger complex, is a military, US military again, based in Darmstadt, Germany. The complex is operated by the United States Army Intelligence and Security Command, INSCOM, on behalf of the US National Security Agency, NSA. Now, the existence of the group was revealed by Bavarian constitutional protector Hans Langemann, and according to the report, he describes the group as, in the case of the Circle, which is clearly defamatory, as far from my earlier knowledge of the BND and my present knowledge are concerned, a loose concentration that meets twice a year at various places of conservative anti-communist politicians, publicists, bankers and VIPs of other professions, which originated in the former French Prime Minister Antoine Pinay, and the circle to which guests are invited continues to this day. So who's in it? Well, it comes as no surprise some of these names. Former US Defense Secretary and President of the World Bank, Paul Wolfowitz. Former Iraqi Coalition Provisional Authority leader, Paul Bremer. Both German-sounding names. Former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld and former Chairman of the Defense Department Defense Policy Board. Yes, that name's been hidden for a while, but this particular person was indicative in 2001, Richard Pearl. And some of the most notable neoconservative architects of the Iraq War are all reportedly members. Other reported American members of the Circle include the US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, go figure, and former Directors of Central Intelligence Bill Casey and William Colby. Former President Richard Nixon, after he left the White House, was in the Circle. And a report from The Independent dated June the 28th, 1997, the exclusive think tank, said to be funded by the CIA, is mentioned because its chairman at the time, former Member of Parliament Jonathan Aitken, was reportedly going to be removed over a libel trial that ultimately sent him to prison for perjury. He's obviously stepped out of line. So, who's been stating the Circle is funded by the CIA? Well, there's two people. A guy by the name of Robin Ramsey, who's the editor of Lobster magazine, and John E. Lewis, the author of the Mammoth Book of Cover-Ups. Its purpose is to subvert the democratic principles and processes of individual countries and are by nature ideologically hawkish. The further process is distributing propaganda, stoking fear of communist plots from Russia. That's been prominent this year, as you all know. Now you know who's doing it. Vote rigging, go figure. Hacking the accounts of politicians and prominent global figures. Promoting the war on terror has been the major factor in their activities of recent years, and in doing so broker weapons deals and setting up false flag operations the world over to suit its agenda. Sound familiar? I'm going to play a song now before seems I've been knocked off air again. Go figure. Right, I'm going to play a song that most of you will not be familiar with. The song's called Tomorrow Belongs to Me, and it will lead into a piece I'm going to cover on a poignant reminder of how we've forgotten, how we've neglected. Tomorrow Belongs to Me is what the Hitler Youth used to play.
The sun on the meadow is summer river.
Now the reason I played that is America needs to wake up. Because those same people who were pulling the strings back in 1944 are pulling the strings here in 2017. The world said it couldn't happen again, but it has, hasn't it? Now, one of the things I'm going to cover now, I want people to really listen to this. Because we cannot carry on ignoring what has been going on this planet. We just can't. First they came for the Neanderthal, the tribal people, and the native people, but we ignored that, as we are not one of them. Then they came for Radomir, better known as Jesus, Magdalene, and their children, but we ignored that as well, as we are not related to them. Then they came for the Templars, but we ignored that, because we're not one of them. Then they came for the heretics, the Romany people, the spiritual people, the psychics, the visionaries, and we ignored all that, because we were not one of them. Then they came for the Rus, but we ignored all that as well, because we are not one of them. Then they came for the Tsars, and we ignored that, because we are not one of them. And then they came for the Jews, but we ignored that, as we are not one of them. Then they came for all the islanders, including American Samoa, Guam, Mariana, the US Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. But we ignored all that, because we're not one of them. Then they came for the Africans, but we ignored all that, because we're not one of them. Then they came for the Middle East people, and we continue to ignore all that, because we are not one of them. Then they came for the Asians, the Viet Cong, and we ignored all that, because we are not one of them. They came for the gays, the homeless, and people of mental disability, but we ignored all that, because we're not one of them. And then they arrived in the Americas, and they came for our education, stole our wealth, stole our lifestyle, stole our homes, stole our lands, stole our farms, stole our businesses, our jobs, our security, our constitution, our rights, our justice, and our minds. But we ignored all that, because that's all a conspiracy, isn't it? Welcome to the Fourth Reich, America. Then they decided to poison our air, the water, our crops, and our food. But we ignored all that, because that's all a conspiracy as well, isn't it? Welcome to the Fourth Reich, America. Then they came for the children, all 500,000 of them per year, for sexual, ritual, sacrificial and organ harvesting. But we ignored all that, as it wasn't one of our children. And again, that's just a conspiracy, isn't it? Then they came for the people of Alabama, the people of Alaska, the people of Arizona, the people of Arkansas, the people of California. But we ignored them, as we don't live there. Then they came for Colorado people, people of Connecticut, people of Delaware, people of Florida, people of Georgia. But we ignored them, because we don't live there. Then they came for the people of Hawaii, the people of Idaho, the people of Illinois, the people of Indiana, the people of Iowa, the people of Kansas, the people of Kentucky, people of Louisiana, the people of Maine, and the people of Maryland. But we ignored them, because we don't live there. They came for the people of Massachusetts, the people of Michigan, the people of Minnesota, the people of the Mississippi, the people of Missouri, the people of Montana. But we ignored all that, because we don't live there. Then they came for the Nebraskans, people of Nevada, people of New Hampshire, people of New Jersey, people of New Mexico, North Carolina, people of North Dakota, the people of Ohio, the people of Oklahoma, the people of Oregon, and the people of Pennsylvania. But we ignored all that, because we don't live there. Then they came for the people of Rhode Island, the people of South Carolina, the people of South Dakota, the people of Tennessee, the people of Texas, and the people of Utah. But we ignored all that, because we don't live there. Then they came for the people of Vermont, the people of West Virginia, the people of Wisconsin, and the people of Wyoming. But we ignored all that, because we don't live there. Then we are left with 3 states. We'll ignore their people as well, as we don't live there either. What we can't ignore is the policy makers in those 3 states. District of Columbia, New York, and Virginia. They were always the problem, but we ignored that as well. Ignorance is a choice now. You have had disclosure, but chose to ignore it, waiting for someone famous to announce it. Welcome to the Fourth Reich, America. It's time we quit ignoring our own little bubble, don't you think? Just because it's not happening to us doesn't mean it's not important. All for one and one for all. And it's time we the people started to act for the benefit of the all. Not just one country or one group of people or one colour. All. Before they come for the planet as well. That is why I played Tomorrow Belongs to Me. Because this country has the same people. Herndon, Virginia. You know who the mayor is? Lisa C. Merkel. Do you think that's a coincidence? Even in tonight's news, the amount of German names. You go look through the House list and the Senate list, you'll find an awful lot more. It's right in your face. The Bushes, real name, Scherf. Nazis. Cheneys, same group. Like I said, welcome to the Fourth Reich, America, and it's time we remembered who and what we are. Hi all, and I hope that last piece sticks. It's how we as humans have let things slide for far too long. It costs nothing to show compassion to your fellow man or woman. Nothing. The best things in life are free, as you say. That's what we've forgotten. It costs nothing to care for others. And yet so few deal in it. It has to cost money, otherwise it's not valid. That's the programming, right in your face. The more you consume as a consumer, the more you get away from the real values of what it means to be human. Considerate, caring, compassion, love. The people we're dealing with have none of that whatsoever. Even elements of the sleepers lack it because they're too ensconced in the AI City of Light program. It's reality, folks. Some people complained last year when I said it's time to stop trying to educate the ones who didn't want to listen. It's now 10 months further on. I think you've all seen the evidence of why I said that now. How can you not care about that list? How can you not care about the people of Texas? Or the potential disaster zone that we were trying to create in Florida? Oh, it's only Florida. Oh, it's only Texas. No, it's only us. No, somebody else. This is where humanity has gone wrong. We've stopped caring for each other, and you descend into the satanic programming. Once you start that slide down the hill, this is what we end up with. Hell on earth. I watched the program, and I'm going to play a piece from it. And these movies have increased over the last few years for disclosure, even though far too many still think of it as fiction. The movie was called Tomorrowland, and this is a speech probably by one of the parents or the coven members on what they thought of humanity. But when you listen to that last piece, perhaps you'll understand why they think that way and why we have to change. Listen to this.
Let's imagine if you glimpsed the future and were frightened by what you saw, what would you do with that information? You would go to politicians, captains of industry, and how would you convince them? Data? Facts? Good luck. The only facts they won't challenge are the ones that keep the wheels greased and the dollars rolling in. But what if there was a way of skipping the middleman and putting the critical news directly into everyone's head? The probability of widespread annihilation kept going up. The only way to stop it was to show it. To scare people straight. Because what reasonable human being wouldn't be galvanized by the potential destruction of everything they've ever known or loved? To save civilization, I would show its collapse. But how do you think this vision was received? How do you think people responded to the prospect of imminent doom? They gobbled it up like a chocolate eclair. They didn't fear their demise. They repackaged it. It can be enjoyed as video games, as TV shows, books, movies. The entire world wholeheartedly embraced the apocalypse and sprinted towards it with gleeful abandon. Meanwhile, your Earth was crumbling all around you. You've got simultaneous epidemics of obesity and starvation. Explain that one. Bees and butterflies start to disappear. The glaciers melt. Algae blooms all around you. The coal mine canaries are dropping dead, and you won't take the hint. In every moment, there is the possibility of a better future, but you people won't believe it. And because you won't believe it, you won't do what is necessary to make it a reality. So you dwell on this terrible future, and you resign yourselves to it. For one reason, because that future doesn't ask anything of you today. So, yes, we saw the iceberg, we warned the Titanic. But you all just steered for it anyway, full steam ahead. Why? Because you want to sink. You gave up.
See why I played that? These movies are done by, like I said, parents and covens. They're telling you we get what we deserve because we gobble up the fear. We tolerate obesity and famine. We tolerate war. And war's fine as long as it's on somebody else's shores. Only the outrage is when it becomes on your soil. But we can change all that. And like I said, it doesn't cost anything except heart. So instead of tomorrow belonging to them, tomorrow belongs to us. We have an obligation and also a golden chance to fix things in a better way for the whole of humanity. Not just for America, not just for Britain, all of humanity. And it's time we all got a voice. Why should we care whether people don't want to listen? Call them out for what they are. Play them that piece. Play them the piece they did in the last hour. All those atrocities everyone ignored. That makes them responsible for all of it. Not us. We've had enough of sin eating on their behalf. It's time they took a share and took a bite out of it. It's called reality. I hope that piece makes people think, because like I started this show in May of 2016, the very first show I said this show will be about thinking and acting in a different way. We cannot carry on thinking and acting in the same way and expecting the changes we all desire. You just can't. The people behind the scenes can only fix so much. Much progress has been made. Massive progress. Has it filtered down? No. Largely not. Some would argue, yes it has. But the point is, have you recognised it? Or are you just going on about your own personal situation? Because you're struggling financially, or you're struggling with health, or you're struggling with foreclosure, etc., etc. Time we worried for all. And time we cared for all. Right. Enough of the heavy stuff. Let's get into some questions. First question. Have you seen all the FEMA graves in Texas? I've not seen it, I've heard about it, and I'm still waiting for a full confirmation on that. But it appears that there's a huge burial site with FEMA boxes. They are killing all the homeless who are in shelters. They came for the homeless, and we ignored that because we're not homeless. Now you see why I did that. A former policeman who had started off in the shelter and stopped when he saw what was going on. He was hiding outside the shelters and was interviewed by a news person who just played it down as if it was nothing. Many high numbers of homeless are being killed and buried in these boxes and covered with bulldozers, it appears. Like I said, I'm still waiting for confirmation. I know the homeless were bussed out of Florida. Nobody knows where or whether they'll return. Again, we can't keep ignoring it. I've just listened to the August 31st show. I have a question you may not like. If all these groups have no money or assets, can you please tell me who is or funding the chemtrail flights? It's all being used on credit. The portion of the show tonight showed you how little funds they have. They're using a credit system based on delivery of the bogus RV from bogus Chinese elders. This is the insanity we're dealing with currently. But finally, particularly over the last 2 months, we're seeing large amounts of dissent in the higher ranks. They just need to be strangled a little bit tighter, it seems. And maybe they'll find that common sense book that was left in the White House. Anyway, what is going on with Drake and his wild stories? He claims he is Zeus, and what and whose side is he on? Did someone get to him, switch him out? I'm so confused. Do you see how the creator protected you, getting you away from CV? Yes, that was meant to be. I was approached 3 times while I was the show host of Cosmic Voice. Somebody offering to pay for a radio show host platform for me to leave Drake. But I don't operate in that way. I'm very loyal to people until they go too far. Some would say I'm too soft. Well, I'd sooner be too soft than too hard, personally. There's time and places for being hard. So I was loyal to Drake, and Drake, the people who were asking me, I said, you know, I haven't got enough ego or imbalanced ego to just, because I've suddenly become a small name in the community, I can now get off and dump Drake and go and do my own show. It's not the way I operate. And I said to Chloe, if it's meant to be that I will have my own radio show, something will take place. If it's not, it won't. Well, something did. It was meant to be. Yes, Drake has mentioned this before, that he believes his former life was as Zeus. That's up to Drake. We get lots of people. You'd be amazed at how many Jesuses and Marys are knocking around. One of them might be valid. I'm not discounting it. Drake believes he's Zeus. Fine. It's time he started fixing things then. You know, it doesn't just come with a name. It's how you can be any name you like. You know, like I've said previous. You may have the females may have been Mother Teresa in a past life, but if you're a homicidal maniac in this one, what use is it? What if we were all Greek gods in the past? But what use is it if you're not doing something in this life? So you create your own name, create your own destiny, not by trampling all over people, but just by being yourself, in tune with others and in harmony with others. I do question some of Drake's latest ET information. I seem to remember those incidents taking place in 2013. There's no Draco on the planet. Anyway, I'm wondering what really happened in the Garden of Eden with the talking snake and all, you know. Talking snakes, burning bushes. Imagine going up to a cop and saying, I've just seen a bush going on fire and it's talking to me, telling me I'm the messenger from God. You got locked up. Or I walked in the garden and this snake started talking to me, telling me to eat the apple. Again, you get locked up. And yet the programming is that strong. These facts kind of get overlooked where the Bible's concerned. Has anybody ever seen a talking snake? No. Has anybody ever seen a bush go on fire and start talking to you? No. Has anybody seen somebody stand in front of a body of water and party and all the good guys go across, and then as the bad guys are running across, the water comes back? But this type of stuff is mentioned. Like I mentioned last week about the Lord, who is Anu, head of the Draco. That's who you're praying to, your Lord. But there's a race of beings called the Serpent People who are in control here as well. Like Shane said, the Draco weren't the worst. I would suggest that talking snake was part of the Serpent People or Serpent race. They're not fun. Of course, you can see the serpent race on the doctor's emblem, the staff, right in your face. Why is it against cosmic law to retaliate, to not retaliate against those clowns? Even unprovoked, no rules appear to or seem to apply to them. Well, we have covered this before. The dark races or entities think they're above the law. It's a bit like politicians and policymakers and certain agencies in certain states that we covered before. They think they're above all known law. As time goes by, they'll realise cosmic law will apply. It just will. Question and answer. It's more of a statement than a question. I was a bit confused when part of a programme dedicated to the eclipse contained significant speculation about its true nature. My first thought was, why not just ask our representatives on the Universal Council? Good question. And this is only one instance of a few. then I finally realised what I think is happening here. Thomas knows much more than he lets on about these things, but by introducing discussion and conjecture on what clearly is bullshittery, he is preparing us for disclosure when it comes. I think in many cases Thomas knows the answer, but isn't at liberty to disclose at this stage. THI is getting us ready. Yes, I can ask the council. I very rarely use them because I would sooner obtain the answers myself. Yes, but the show is not preparing us for disclosure. The show has been disclosure since it started. Go and look back at all the big shows we've done. There's enough contained in most shows each week. There's always something new that comes up, judging by the comments of members, listeners. It is disclosure. And yes, I know more than I do let on, for various reasons. Safety, protection, and it's better, I feel, by throwing up discussion and conjecture and making people think and ponder on certain things rather than just follow the leader. We don't need another saviour programme. So I'll throw things out sometimes as a theory when it's actually fact, and get people to think. Because ultimately we all need to start thinking rather than just following. One of the members or one of the people in the group seems to think that our group's not special. Perhaps you haven't been in the group long enough. It's not for me to say whether it is or not. What makes it special is not me. What makes it special is the people in it. Because we've all kind of come together, shared our stories, shared our life, and large numbers are caring and looking after each other. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. That's the top and bottom line of everything. And that largely costs nothing. Thanks for the comments. Is the transhumanism agenda being pushed so the controllers can keep the Matrix alive? No, so they can keep... Yes and no is the answer to that. The transhumanism is for them to carry on forever. So they don't have to keep reincarnating where there's the possibility they forget. So they're trying to steer us into a robot world. Half man, half human, half robot. This is what all these chips are about. And there's one there on the page this week about a tattoo that appears to disappear into your skin, and you can read your heart and your brain waves from it. You know, my comment on the post was, you know, how many of us are walking along the road and think, ooh, I need to read my brain waves. Good luck with that. What are we going to do with it, that information? If you're having a heart attack, you'll know about it. You don't need some RFID chip to tell you. Yet again, it's something outside of you. And that's the essence of transhumanism. It's something outside of you. The machine controls the human, not the other way around. Everything with these people has to be outside of you. That's how they operate. Because they're incapable of operating inside of themselves because it's too ugly. Are the FEMA camps going to be used to harvest human organs? Probably. Are the ETs you had on the show working with the Kingdom of Mana? If so, any progress? Yes, and much. When there's more to report, or it's safe to report, we will have it only in this show. Do you think they are cloning non-empathic soldiers and police en masse to aid their agenda? Yes, I warned of this back in 2014. I was given warning that a large number of cops were being replaced by clones. You know, when you see some of the behaviour of them, where they're dragging old ladies across the pavement, beating women up. There was a video this week that they shot one of their own. Shoot first, ask questions later. Not the way to be. And that's the way the robots act. You know, you've seen them all, and it's all very efficient, robotic programming. Must follow orders. Well, the ones that create the orders are the ones that create the program. As we've got no spiritual based people who are not interested in war, the ones that are writing the software for the robots are going to be warrior types. It's not going to be a nice future to be in there, and it's time we started acting in a different way and prevent that once and for all. What happened to the coverage of the people in Houston? It almost feels like it never happened. Well, they created the Florida storm because certain things are now being reported in Houston that they don't want to hear, the public to hear about, because it is going semi-viral, where people are now seeing the fun and games of the Red Cross and FEMA denying people food, denying people going into shelters, etc., etc. And so then the news media then decided to create another event, and so everyone then forgets about Houston and let's all focus on Florida. Now, Florida turned out to be mainly a damp squib, pardon the pun, and not the catastrophic it was laid out to be. They'll come up with another event, so you forget the two of them. It's the classic sleight of hand that they pull over people's eyes far too easily, in my opinion. Far too easily. The focus on Red Cross and FEMA needs to be every day for the rest of this year and next year until both of them are shut down permanently. Could you tell me more if you know anything about Heather and Tushy Giraffe and OPPT? Not again. I started outing them in 2013, September, October, November time. They're on the Cosmic Voice shows. And the July the 20th show detailed about Heather Giraffe and Danny McKenney and Lisa Harrison and the OPPT clowns. I've been listening to Shane's interview with Cara St. Louis, who I happen to really like. She's a Waldorf teacher and a big advocate. Any thoughts on this, considering you are not a Waldorf advocate? See, we do ask all the questions, even the uncomfortable ones. Waldorf teachers are not teachers. I'm going to make a statement. They're not teachers, they're trainers. Like the Svarli people. Period. Unless I see evidence that changes that opinion, which is unlikely given the material I've read on it, those people are trainers. And I don't care which particular name, whether it be Cara St. Louis or Alana Freeland, who's another one, who suddenly comes onto the scene. Except this guy sees patterns very quickly. That's the fourth in the last 3 months of the Waldorf Steiner people. Me thinks it smacks of another program coming up. And I've been sent a fairly lengthy dossier on the Steiner group. I've read sufficient. And tomorrow belongs to me. Fits with them as well. It's another Nazi program. And if they've been teachers in there for any length of time, they will know. Sorry. That upsets Cara St. Louis, but she really needs to come out. She seemed to take great glee in the interview with Shane on mentioning that she was a Waldorf teacher. She mentioned it about 6 times. Like it's some sort of status symbol. Well, all the Rothschilds go there. So what does that tell you? Smacks of another program they're setting up, whereby some of the paid goons on the alternative media who are not bright enough to cover their tracks. So now they send in more clever people. Except this person spots patterns very quickly. We'll see how it plays out. If Cara St. Louis wants to step out and step forward and mention what went on in the Steiner school, fine. I've not seen any evidence in her material to suggest that she thought that that school was wrong. I've seen plenty of evidence showing it's badly wrong. One of the things they teach the teachers is to be touchy-feely with the children, put them on their knee, stroke them. Would you want that with your child? And the teachers are, like I said, they're not teachers, they're trainers. They're training the kids to be a certain way. And one of the things that these teachers in the Steiner Waldorf schools do is teach the kids to cut off their parents and only bond with the teacher. Now do you see where I'm going? For those of you who listen to the Illuminati show, it's the same program. Last week you stated you didn't like guns. I don't have one, should I get one? Your choice. I'm not advising people to get guns one way or the other. meditating 2 nights ago, and while sleeping I keep hearing sounds like a door slamming or like a far away shocking noise. It woke me from my sound sleep. Any ideas what that may have been? That's more pertaining to you. You need to meditate some more and find out why. The door slamming is not a good sign. It means in my opinion, it means you've cut off a door for progression because you don't like certain information. That's up to you to find that out. You will know. You will know more if you meditate on it. Just listened to a show with Randy, and I spoke with Randy on this last night, and a guy promoting and selling carbon 60. Although I do trust Randy, I'm concerned this may be just another fad. We're attaining further knowledge on that. Randy is far more scientific based than I am, and he suggests it's okay, but we will look into it. I've agreed to disagree with many people I dearly love around me. They refuse to accept or investigate my narrative. Should I prepare to say goodbye to them in the near future? Possible. Any truth to the Federal Reserve to start processing ACH payments starting on the 15th? And will this include credit unions? Unsure on the credit unions. I'm unsure whether this is the way they're going to go. But the ACH payment is run by a group called NACHA. And you will not be surprised, given the theme of tonight's show, to hear that they are based in Virginia. A place called Herndon, I mentioned earlier, which is an incorporated town by the Commonwealth of Virginia. In other words, Crown owned. And the mayor of the town who runs it, Lisa C. Merkel. Oops. Tomorrow belongs to me indeed. Where are we next? When will the real truth about 9/11 come out to the people? It already has. This is where we need to stop looking outside of us. Everyone in America, there's no excuse anymore, has heard about the fun and games surrounding 9/11. Everyone. Over 50% of Americans now believe 9/11 was in part an inside job. Or completely. So, the information, this is how the cabal work. They'll allow certain information to come out. They'll wait for the reaction. Does it create a problem? So it's like a reverse of the problem, reaction, solution. If it creates a problem, then they have a solution and they cut it. Like I just mentioned in the previous, one of the previous questions. Suddenly Houston doesn't exist. Or the event that played out in Houston a couple of weeks ago. See how they do it? So the public started finding out that FEMA were killing people. They were rounding up thousands of the homeless and disappearing them. That the Red Cross was staying in 5-star hotels and not tending to the shelters. So they switch it. And this is why we have to start thinking on a deeper level. This is what I'm trying to get it all to be in with this show. You can't just walk away after this show and go, that's a great show, that, Thomas, and then come back next Thursday. Because during that week, they've planned something else to try and shred us. They don't stop. We have greater numbers than them, so we don't have to all carry the burden. We just have to share it around. But if you're turning up only thinking about the world every Thursday with this show, then really that you're part of the problem, because it should be part of you 24/7, or a large part of it. How can we fix this? How can we do this? Have I done sufficient shadow work? Have I dealt with my inner side? We've already had disclosure in 9/11. We've had disclosure about transhumanism. We've had disclosure about the AI. We've had disclosure about ETs. And yet many still wait for someone famous outside of them to announce it. From the very same people that are spouting bullshittery 24/7 on CNN, Fox and all the other bullshit channels. It's a valid question, but it was also a valid answer. We've already had the truth. I don't seem to see as many stars in the night sky as I used to. Is this actually the case? Or if so, why? I don't have an answer for that one. I've not checked the night sky. Of course, we've been under rather windy conditions and swirling storms and all this fun and games. I'll check if there's a difference. It may just be that we've tilted a bit. It's a less dense region of the sky is being shown. Maybe. Do you have any information as to why synthetics were introduced? Part of the degradation of the human soul. To corrupt humanity. Is the ultimate divide and conquer the split of the divine into male and female? In some cases, yeah. You could also argue light and dark. Is there a difference between light and dark? Some people go, that's a ridiculous statement, but it's not, because each and every one of you who listens to this show has the potential to be the ultimate light and the ultimate dark. It all comes down to your own choice. What choice will you make? I know most of you that listen to this show are operating on the lighter side, because that's the choice you made. But there's been far too much divide and conquer, and again, in my opinion, the people fall for it far too easily. Far too easily. I've made a comment And those of you who've been listening to the show long enough will remember when I first made the statement on CV was I was getting a bit tired of Drake talking about illegal aliens. There's so many Americans talking about illegal aliens, forgetting that most of America is transported from Europe and all over the world. Where do you draw the line? Well, I draw the line as far as it goes. You cannot be an illegal alien on your own planet. And the sooner people start thinking in those sorts of terms, then we start moving forward. Illegal alien on your own planet. Think about what you're saying. Because the media have told you that the Muslims are all bad. Have you met them all? Or the Russians, they're all communists. Have you met them all? All the North Koreans, they're all warmongers, and the Iraqis and the Libyans and the Syrians. Have you met them all? Please stop and think of what you're saying. I don't wish to hear anyone in our group stating illegal aliens, because it's beyond comprehension of what we are supposed to stand for. Does the cabal block, cut, mess with your silver cord to kill or make you sick? That's not necessarily the cabal. It's more to do with the entities that can do that from the astral level. The key is for you to develop you so that you bypass that lower astral level and operate from the mental planes. That requires, like the piece I played from the movie Tomorrowland, that requires you fixing you. Where you go up the human evolutionary plane. Once you get on the mental levels, you're bypassing the lower astral with all the rather dark entities and all the beings that have been killed off on this planet. They're all there in that layer. Dinosaurs, dragons, etc., etc., etc. And the Archons. Is Russia on Hammond land? I don't know what Hammond land is. I'll do some research and I'll get back to you. Russia, there was a place called Tartaria long before the term USSR, or what is now known as Russia. That whole northern region of what is now Russia was called Tartaria. Lots of the Rus people were there. They came for them and we ignored it. So they can rewrite history and move lines and create bigger this and bigger that and move this resources to here, all to suit their agenda. And the last question, I think, what about the Navy SEAL going to Berkeley? No idea what that is, sorry. I didn't get much chance to check up on certain things this week with storms and fun and games and all that malarkey. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show, and as per usual, I'm hoping that you take something away from it. For the American people, welcome to the Fourth Reich. Do we want to end their Reich altogether? Or let them prosper by doing nothing? The Peace in Tomorrowland. For those of you who haven't watched it, go and watch it. There's disclosure in that as well. Some bits that I've covered in previous shows. But that statement that I played earlier, as harsh as it sounds, is also harsh because it's largely correct. We don't care enough. We don't care about others enough. We only care about us and our immediate surroundings. But if we keep ignoring what's happening around the world and what's happening in the next city or the next state or the next country, eventually there's nothing left. I think we're more than capable of stepping up and being the change. It's time we show it. Right, okay, I'll be back next Thursday. I'm waiting for more people to come forward for an evening with Thomas, so there won't be one this Sunday. Maybe I need the rest after last Sunday. So if you want to come on the show and tell your story or ask me questions or whatever you choose to do, just send an email to thetruth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. List about 10 topics and pick 4 songs, and we'll bring you on. Right. A thinking show again. It's time we all started thinking and acting different, and in greater volume, and in greater capacity also. And not just me be the voice, as you're the voice as well. This has been The Truth, Honour and Integrity. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.